Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we are going to jump into one of my all-time favorite topics in the Form 2 syllabus, biodiversity. So whether you're here for a bit of last-minute revision or you're just starting the chapter, don't worry. This quick explainer is going to cover everything you need to know about the amazing variety of life we have right here in Malaysia.
Okay, let's just kick things off with a fact that is pretty mind-blowing. See this number? 12. Out of almost 200 countries in the entire world, Malaysia is one of only 12 that are recognized as mega biodiverse. You know, that's like being in the world's super exclusive club for nature. It basically means our country is just packed to the brim with an incredible variety of plants and animals, which makes this chapter really important for all of us as Malaysians.
So, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to cover the basics, what biodiversity actually is and why it's so important. Then, we'll dive right into how scientists organize all this life, taking a look at both animals and plants. We're even going to learn how to use a biologist's secret code to identify different organisms. And to finish it all off, we'll wrap up with some must-know tips for your exams. So you ready? Let's go!
Right. First things first. Let's get our heads around this big word, biodiversity. What on earth does it actually mean?
To put it simply, biodiversity is the incredible variety of all living things on our planet. And look, it's not just about the big, famous animals like tigers or orangutans. Nope, it includes everything, from the tiniest little bacteria working away in the soil to the green moss you see on a rock, all the way up to the massive, towering trees in our rainforests. And all this amazing variety is here because our world has so many different environments and climates.
So why does all of this matter? I mean, is it just nice to have a bunch of different plants and animals hanging around? Well, as it turns out, it is absolutely essential for our survival.
Think of biodiversity as the engine that keeps our planet running. It helps balance nature. I'm talking about things like bees pollinating our durian flowers so we can enjoy the fruit, or our forests helping to regulate the climate. It's our natural supermarket and pharmacy, from the herbs we use in traditional medicine to the food on our plates. For our economy, things like timber and bamboo are so important. And of course, our beautiful national parks like Taman Negara are huge for tourism and are basically priceless outdoor classrooms for scientists and students like us. So, how do we protect this incredible natural treasure? Well, we've got two main strategies. Let's think of it this way. In situ conservation is all about protecting species inside their natural home. We protect the whole forest to save the animals living in it, like the orangutans and sepalak. Now, ex situ, on the other hand, think exit, or outside their natural home. This is where we step in and create safe places like zoos or botanical gardens to help breed and protect endangered species. Both of these methods are absolutely crucial. Okay, with millions and millions of different species out there, how in the world do scientists keep track of them all? It would just be total chaos. Well, the answer is classification. They group living things based on characteristics they share. Let's take a look at how this really clever system works.
The very first big split is super simple. It all comes down to one question. Does it have a backbone? Go on, try to feel the bumps on the back of your neck. That's your spine, your backbone. And that makes you a vertebrate. Now, any animal that doesn't have a backbone is called an invertebrate. And just that one single feature is the first major step to organizing the entire animal kingdom.
Now let's zoom in on the invertebrates, that massive group without backbones. We can split them up even more. First question, do they have legs? If the answer is yes, we count them. Have a look at an ant. It's got 3 pairs of legs, a classic feature of insects. But spiders, they've got more than 3 pairs. Okay, but what if they don't have legs at all? Then we look at their body. See the earthworm? Its body is made of all these little rings, or segments. Compare that to a snail, which has a smooth, non-segmented body. See? It's just a simple process of observing.
All right, that's the animal basics covered. Now let's switch gears and have a look at the plant kingdom, which, you guessed it, has its own really logical system of classification.
Just like with animals, the first big split for plants is a simple one. Do they make flowers or not? Non-flowering plants include things like ferns and mosses, which reproduce using tiny little things called spores, and also pine trees, which use cones. Then you've got the flowering plants. Think about our national flower, the hibiscus. This is the biggest group by far, and it's split into 2 really important subgroups that you need to know.
Okay, everyone, screenshot this or get your notebooks out because this table is pure exam gold. We're talking about monocots versus dicots. Let's break it down. First up,
Cotyledons. These are basically the first baby leaves that pop out of a seed. Monocots have one, dicots have two. Easy. Next, look at the leaves. If the veins run in straight, parallel lines, kind of like on a blade of grass or a paddy leaf, it's a monocot. But if they branch out and form a network, it's a dicot. It's the same for the roots. Monocots have a messy, fibrous root system, but dicots usually have one big, thick main root called a taproot. See? Just by looking at a few simple features, we can classify almost any flowering plant.
Okay, let's jump back to the animals that do have backbones, the vertebrates. This whole group is divided into 5 major classes, and we're going to go through them one by one.
First up, we have fish. They are poikilothermic, which is just a fancy word for cold-blooded. It means they don't make their own body heat. Their temperature just matches the water around them, kind of like a bottle of water you leave out in the sun. They breathe underwater using gills. They're covered in slimy scales for protection, and they use external fertilization. So the female lays eggs in the water, and the male fertilizes them right there.
Next, we've got the amphibians. Just think of frogs. They're also cold-blooded, but instead of scales, they have this really moist, smooth skin. But their coolest feature has got to be their double life. They start out as tadpoles living in water, breathing with gills, and then they transform into adults that can live on land and breathe with lungs. And just like fish, they use external fertilization, laying those little clumps of jelly-like eggs that you see in ponds.
Then we have the reptiles. We're talking snakes, lizards, crocodiles, turtles. They are still cold-blooded, and they breathe with lungs and have tough, dry scales. But a really key advantage for them is internal fertilization and laying eggs that have a protective, leathery shell. This was a huge deal in evolution because it meant they could finally move away from the water to have their babies.
And now for a major game changer. Birds are homeothermic, or warm-blooded. This means, just like you and me, they can generate their own body heat and keep their internal temperature constant. That's why they can be out and active even on a chilly morning. Their key features? They're covered in feathers, have wings for flight, breathe with lungs, and they lay hard-shelled eggs.
And finally, that brings us to our own class, mammals. We are also warm-blooded and we also breathe with lungs. But what really defines us is that we're covered in fur or hair. And most importantly, females give birth to live young and then produce milk to feed them. This level of parental care is what really makes mammals stand out.
Okay, now for one of the coolest tools in all of biology. I know it might look a little complicated at first, but trust me, it's a super powerful and actually very simple way to identify almost any organism. I like to call it the biologist's secret code.
It's called a dichotomous key. That fancy word, dichotomous, just means dividing into 2 parts. And really, that's all this is, a series of paired statements or questions. At every step, you have to pick one of 2 choices that best describes the organism you're looking at. And by following the path of your choices, you'll eventually find its exact identification.
Using it is just like playing one of those choose-your-own-adventure games. You always start at step 1. You'll see 2 statements, read them both, look carefully at your organism, and pick the one that matches. That statement will either tell you the name of the organism or it'll direct you to the next step to go to. You just keep following the path until you solve the puzzle and find out what you've got. It's a simple process of elimination, and it's a super important skill for your exams.
Wow, okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. So let's wrap this all up with a quick recap of the most important things that you absolutely have to remember for your exams.
All right, here it is, your exam focus checklist. First, you need to be confident in using a dichotomous key. Seriously, practice this. Second, you have to know a few of our proud Malaysian endemic species, like the Malayan tiger and the giant Rafflesia flower. Third, be super clear on the difference between internal and external fertilization in vertebrates. And last but not least, that monocot versus dicot table, yeah, make sure you know it inside out, backwards and forwards.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into biodiversity. Before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. It is an incredible privilege for us to live in a mega biodiverse country. It's a treasure that we all share. So my question to you is this: what is one small action you can take this week to help protect it? It really doesn't have to be anything big. Just think about it. Thanks so much for studying with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.